"Come here, little animal," whispered Zeb, as he faced the most critical moment of his life. In a sealed chamber, racing against time, he extracted Spark's cracked fang, while Dragon Teeth Corporation forces cut through the door. When they nearly broke through, Spark unleashed a desperate blaze of fire that shook the entire ship, forcing the enemy to retreat and giving Zeb precious seconds to complete the life-saving procedure. The dark sunrise bar on Crakran 4 was quieter than usual. A faint smell of coolant oil permeated the air, while a recording of ultrasonic tooth sounds played softly through small speakers. Zeb Prefect sat at the counter, nursing a glowing blue drink known as Glor. His appearance was disheveled, with dark circles under his eyes from staying up all night caring for a patient. As an interstellar dentist, Zeb traveled to distant planetary systems to treat the teeth of strange creatures. He also smuggled forbidden dental tools on the side. Despite his cold, sarcastic demeanor, deep down, he possessed great compassion. He avoided contact with children, especially younglings, because he feared being asked too many questions. The bar was nearly empty. Just a few strangers, a three-headed merchant, a pair of mining robots, and a talking brush, a broom-like creature that communicated through ultrasonic frequencies. Zeb's heart beat slowly as he glanced at the electronic board displaying urgent messages from the Galactic Dental Association. In this galaxy, dentistry wasn't just medicine, but a status symbol. Those who could endure difficult treatments for alien species were revered. However, many exploited dentistry to smuggle ultra-rare tooth-healing crystals. Suddenly, the electronic board flashed. Urgent, emergency signal from the research vessel. Insatiable curiosity. The message continued. Urgent dental care needed. Creature in pain. Life-threatening situation for personnel. Zeb, initially intending to ignore it and enjoy some quiet time, suddenly tensed. He checked his wrist sensor. The Space Gato tracker, showed him the position of the insatiable curiosity drifting in the Horsehead Nebula. The barman, Dax, a broom-shaped creature, smiled. Zeb, looks like another strange tooth trouble awaits you. Last month, you saved an Axtrachian with full-body tooth decay. Who is it this time? Zeb pressed the confirmation button. Send. Please message back why they want me to come. Just seconds later, a small red message appeared. Faltroxian dragon juvenile alive, along with a blurry photo of a purple-blue creature, its body contorted in a glass cage. Faltroxian dragons were believed extinct for centuries. Dragon Teeth Corporation had nearly exhausted the species to harvest their fangs for industrial materials. Another shock came when the emergency report mentioned a youngling, human child on board, the only one who could approach the dragon without being burned alive. Zeb, hands trembling, muttered, "A child. I don't like dealing with children, but the dragon is valuable, and if I don't save it, it will be swept away and destroyed by dragon teeth." He decided, I'll come. I'll be there in 6 hours. Zeb piloted his dental ship Sweet Tooth, equipped with a mobile operating room, 3D dental scanner, and storage for specialized anesthetic crystals. En route, he recalled his past. The first time he treated a Greylan, a giant space hippopotamus. He almost got his teeth bitten off. Finishing the story, he smirked. Who knew its teeth were the size of tunnel doors? In the Horsehead system, ion storms bombarded his journey. Sweet Tooth shuddered slightly, the directional needle wavering amid the photon rain. Zeb had to steer carefully to avoid going off course. Sweet Tooth docked directly into the travel sphere port of the insatiable curiosity. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and fire smoke. There had been several small fires in the compartment. Zeb discovered many data rooms shattered, the entire third level deformed under the heat. He guessed the dragon had breathed fire in an attempt to endure the pain. The crew members, some with 6 legs, others with robotic limbs, had bleary eyes and looked exhausted. They hurriedly greeted Zeb when they saw him, clearly having waited anxiously since yesterday. Zeb met Mila and Spark. Mila was an 8-year-old girl with black ponytailed hair, wearing an oversized jacket, hugging a teddy bear with attached dental tools, pliers, mini drills. Her gaze was cool but extremely focused, her face like a little scientist. Spark, the young dragon, was the size of a small house, with 4 sturdy legs, shimmering blue-black scales, and 2 eyes burning yellow like fire pits. The dragon lay curled up in the stretcher compartment, its nose snorting white smoke. One upper fang was cracked, emitting a pink glow. Each time it moaned, heat rose, making the air dance like a furnace. Mila approached Spark, patting its muzzle gently. "Spark, brother, your tooth is terrible. I called the dentist to save you." Spark moaned, trying to bend its neck for Mila to touch. Zeb stammered, "The dragon. It really feels pain?" Mila nodded. "It communicates with me through thoughts. I hear it saying pain with every beat. It only contains its fire if I'm nearby. Otherwise, there's an immediate fire." Zeb used his specialized 3D scanner to examine Spark's entire jaw. Fang size, 1.2 meters long. Outer surface covered with a natural heat-resistant alloy of the Faltroxian species. Deep crack reaching the gum, signs of pulp blackening. If not treated, the infection could spread throughout the throat, releasing toxic vapor. He fiddled with his tools, a special pair of pliers, a dry heat lamp, and a syringe of anesthetic, nanoform, mixed to quickly extinguish the pulp. Suddenly, an alarm appeared. A signal from Dragon Teeth Corporation, DTC, announced they were circling the ship. Expected to approach in 20 minutes to inspect protected biological specimen material. The bold warning read, "Any signs of concealing a young dragon are a serious legal violation. All passengers will be detained." Zeb looked at Mila. "Girl, we can't treat its tooth openly. If DTC comes in, they'll take Spark." Mila was quick-witted. "I know a hiding place in the deepest compartment, where biosensors are weakest. However, even a small child like me can't. You need to help me create a fake dragon head larger than Spark to fool the scanning cameras." Together with Captain Zyloff, Zeb came up with a plan. 1. Separate Spark from the main compartment. Move it to a smaller, sealed compartment, an old one, formerly used to store underwater rock samples. Thanks to Spark's compression ability, it could squeeze through the low passage door. 2. Create a fake dragon model. From scrap titanium frames, scales interspersed with luminescent lights, attach a rotating heat source to produce smoke, deceiving DTC. 3. Zeb would secretly anesthetize and extract Spark's tooth in the sealed compartment, replacing it with a heat-resistant titanium tooth, using the ship's emergency 3D printing technology. With only 12 minutes left, the crew hurriedly gathered tools. Mila led Spark through the pneumatic tube door, and Zeb rushed to assemble the fake dragon head frame. The countdown began from 300 seconds. DTC formally requested the ship to open the main compartment now, or we will be forced to puncture the hull, blocking internal signals. In the sealed compartment, Zeb injected the nano-anesthetic into the pulp of Spark's fang. The dragon moaned, its scales vibrating like heated metal. Mila, standing nearby, whispered, "Slowly, Spark. Hold tight." Outside the main compartment, the DTC ship began scanning every basement level. The fake dragon model, about the size of a house, eyes glowing orange, vibrated slightly, releasing artificial smoke layers produced by mini heat engines, creating strong interference for both biosensor radar and imaging. A DTC strike team burst in, hurriedly beginning to inspect the model. "What's this? No DNA traces? Just alloys and circuits? Internal heat check shows only 1000 degree K." They shook their heads, frustrated. "Looks like they're hiding some kind of mobile laboratory. Keep checking other rooms. Brothers. In the sealed compartment. Zeb pried deeper into the crack, small flames shooting out when the tooth was touched by the thermal drill. He coldly teased, "Don't worry, Spark. I've never done this before, but if anything happens, I'll learn via Twitter in 30 seconds. Spark hissed, releasing a stream of red vapor, its eyes flashing with fire. Mila hugged Spark's muzzle, gently whispering, "I'm here. Don't be afraid, brother." The most tense moment came when Zeb had just removed the cracked fang, and DTC suddenly detected a weak biological signal under the floor. Despite moving Spark to the sealed compartment, traces remained. The compartment door was locked. Alarms sounded, even though the enemy hadn't gotten in yet. The DTC team was determined to break through. Many steel cutters were attached to the sealed compartment door. Blinding flames spread as they prepared to cut through the wall. Zeb spun around, rushing to use a hot melt welding tool to temporarily seal the door. He shouted, "Mila, help me keep Spark safe." Mila placed her hand on Spark's muzzle. And now the dragon let out a strange cry, flames gushing out intensely, but it only burned directly at the cutting tip, causing the entire ship to shake. The DTC team panicked, forced to retreat to avoid being incinerated. After temporarily driving away DTC, Zeb completed Spark's tooth replacement. The new titanium tooth was integrated with a thermal sensing system to self-cool when Spark breathed fire. He injected additional anti-inflammatory compounds and antibiotics to help the dragon heal quickly. Spark gradually awoke from sedation, 4 eyes shimmering with sadness from the pain. But when Mila stroked and whispered, "You're okay now. They can't find you anymore," Spark quietly nodded, then emitted a soft roar, a roar like an affectionate thank you. The fake dragon model continuously emitted smoke and heat, preventing DTC from further verification. They decided to move to another star system to continue their investigation. Before leaving, the DTC representative, Mr. Suit, clenched his jaw. "We will return." The Faltrox dragon's signal was clearly visible on radar 10 minutes ago. Nothing can hide its biological code forever. The DTC ship departed in a heavy atmosphere, leaving a warning. Dragon Teeth Corporation never gives up on a Faltroxian specimen. This is just the beginning. Captain Zyloff turned to Zeb. "We can't stay here much longer. They'll come back with twice the numbers." Mila hugged Spark. "We need to take Spark to a safe place. Red Earth, my home planet, where dragon legends are just myths." Zeb silently glanced at Spark, now only the size of a large horse, its scales becoming patchy and dry after treatment. He realized, "We can only go to Red Earth, or any remote planet, as long as it's far from Dragon Teeth's reach." Using a secret communication system, Zeb contacted the Galactic Dental Association. "I'm transporting a young Faltroxian. If I go public, Dragon Teeth will arrive immediately. Please issue an emergency movement permit to Red Earth." The Dental Association hesitated, fearing confrontation with DTC, but eventually, pressure from the space doctor community forced them to agree. A small escort, including 2 research vessels and 1 logistics ship, would follow to dispel suspicion. The fleet traversed the Vestax corridor, a region of space filled with wave-blocking crystals, favorable for avoiding DTC radar. En route, Zeb took the opportunity to teach Mila how to control Spark's pain when it emitted smoke. When you see Spark's scales trembling, you need to cool it down by giving it nano-ice liquid mixture. I'll write down instructions and send them to you. Spark grew closer to both of them. Wherever it went, it flapped its wings, spreading ash and leaving clumps of dirt behind its feet. Thanks to the new titanium tooth, it no longer moaned in pain, just limped slightly when moving. The fleet parked in orbit, using solar energy sails to land gently. Red Earth was a pristine planet with crimson plains, sacred land in the legends of the natives. Spark looked like a precious gem amid the red wilderness, its scales gleaming like emeralds reflecting the evening sun. Mila slipped her small hand into Spark's foot, whispering, "Brother, we'll live peacefully here. No one will find us." Zeb smiled. "I promise. This is the last place we'll come to. At least until your teeth trouble you again." Zeb and Mila built a temporary sheltered compound, installing solar panels to generate electricity for the migration camp. Spark roamed freely, eating local specialty vegetation, wearing a collar that emitted a transcendent frequency signal, so that if DTC intentionally tracked it, it would lead them far away. The indigenous people of Red Earth, red-skinned humanoids with 8 fingers, came to observe Spark. They thought the dragon legend had become reality. They would help protect Spark from evildoers. Mila integrated with the natives, learning their language and customs. The girl was soon regarded as the newborn dragon warden. Zeb secretly collected soil and plant samples to study the interaction between the Faltrox dragon's body and the Red Earth environment, aiming to optimize nutrition for Spark. In orbit, the Galactic Dental Association publicly sold Faltroxian dental DNA maps on the data black market, leaving DTC with only a single fang. Now, their finances plummeted, stocks declined. Rumors of a young Faltrox dragon living with an 8-year-old girl quickly became legend, traveling throughout the galaxy, enough to give DTC headaches with endless investigations without being able to reach Spark. In the final scene, against the sunset sky of Red Earth, Spark's shadow swept past on wings, blowing a small flame to warm Mila, sitting beside the Age of Peace tree. Zeb stood by the camp gate, gazing into the distance. He whispered, "Even a dentist can change the fate of an entire species." The sky slowly lowered its night curtain, the small group dotted with solar-powered lights, creating the final hiding place for Spark, a place the entire universe would struggle to find. The gentle glow of the dual moons cast shadows across the makeshift settlement. Zeb sat on a flat rock, watching as Mila guided Spark through what appeared to be training exercises. The dragon, though still young, moved with increasing confidence each day. Its new titanium tooth gleamed whenever it opened its mouth. "You're making remarkable progress," Zeb called out, impressed by how the creature's movements had become more fluid since the extraction. The dragon's scales had begun to develop a deeper sheen, transitioning from the dull, blue-black of illness to a vibrant azure with highlights of emerald when caught in the right light. Mila beamed at him. "Spark learns quickly. The native healers taught me their connection rituals. They believe dragons once inhabited this world long ago." Zeb nodded thoughtfully. The Red Earth natives had extensive oral histories about great-scaled beasts who commanded fire and sky. When they first saw Spark, many had fallen to their knees in reverence. What had begun as a temporary refuge was becoming something more significant, perhaps even sacred to the locals. "Come see what we discovered today," Mila said, beckoning Zeb to follow her and Spark to a secluded canyon beyond the settlement's perimeter. As they walked, Spark moved protectively close to Mila. The bond between them had only strengthened during their journey in settlement. Zeb had never seen anything like it, a telepathic connection between species that transcended conventional communication. The canyon opened into a vast cavern with high, vaulted ceilings. The walls bore ancient etchings that took Zeb's breath away, countless images of creatures that looked remarkably like Spark, interacting with humanoid figures. "The elders say these drawings are over 50,000 years old," Mila explained, her voice echoing in the chamber. "They believe the Faltroxians once lived here in harmony with their ancestors." Spark approached one particularly large etching, raising its head to inspect the image of a massive adult dragon. The creature seemed to recognize something in the ancient artwork, emitting a low, mournful sound that resonated throughout the cavern. "It's remarkable," Zeb whispered, his dentist's mind momentarily eclipsed by wonder. This could mean Red Earth isn't just a random hiding place. It might be their ancestral home, As he scanned the walls with his portable analyzer, Zeb noted something even more fascinating. Mineral traces in the cavern matched exactly with the composition of Spark's fang. "The dental chemistry is identical," he murmured. "This planet may have been where Faltroxians evolved before spreading across the galaxy." That evening, they shared their discovery with Captain Zyloff and the native elders around a communal fire. The implications were profound. Red Earth wasn't just a sanctuary. It was potentially the original homeworld of the Faltroxian dragons. "If that's true," Captain Zyloff said thoughtfully, stroking his tentacles, "then the Dragon Teeth Corporation's claim that Faltroxians are their legal property is invalid under galactic heritage laws." Zeb nodded. "Precisely. Indigenous species returning to their evolutionary birthplace are protected by the ancestral return statutes." The eldest of the Red Earth natives, a weathered figure named Cora, leaned forward. "Our stories tell that the sky beasts left when the Great Cold came. They promised to return when the world warmed again." She gestured to the night sky. "Perhaps this little one is the first of many." The idea that Spark might not be the last surviving Faltroxian gave Zeb hope. If there were others, scattered across distant systems, hidden from Dragon Teeth's relentless hunt, perhaps the species could truly recover here, in their original home. Mila, who had been quiet during the discussion, suddenly spoke up. "Spark has been trying to tell me something for days. I think it senses others." All eyes turned to the young dragon, who was staring intently at the stars, as though looking for something, or someone, beyond their reach. "How many?" Zeb asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mila closed her eyes, her face scrunched in concentration as she connected with Spark's thoughts. 3, maybe 4, very far away, but alive." Captain Zyloff immediately began calculating on his portable navigator. "If we cross-reference known DTC hunting patterns with uncharted regions where Faltroxian biological signatures have been reported, we could find them," Zeb finished, a new determination filling his voice. "We could bring them home." The conversation lasted deep into the night, plans forming and reforming as they considered the risks and possibilities. Finding other Faltroxians would mean venturing back into spaces where DTC held influence. It would mean placing themselves, and more importantly Spark, in danger once again. Yet the alternative, leaving potential survivors to eventually be discovered and exploited by Dragon Teeth, was unthinkable. As the fire died down to embers, Zeb found himself alone with his thoughts. He had never intended to become embroiled in something so much larger than dentistry. His life before had been comfortably predictable: fixing teeth, collecting his fee, moving on to the next patient. No attachments, no grand causes. Now, watching Spark sleep peacefully beside Mila in their shared shelter. He wondered if he had ever truly been satisfied with that existence. There was something undeniably fulfilling about having found purpose beyond mere survival or profit. The next morning brought new challenges. Their long-range scanners detected unusual activity in the neighboring system, a DTC scout ship, running stealth patterns. They hadn't found Red Earth yet, but they were systematically searching nearby sectors. Their being thorough, Captain Zyloff observed grimly as they reviewed the data. Typical DTC methodology: grid search with bioscanners calibrated specifically for Faltroxian signatures. Zeb's mind raced through options. The transcendent frequency collar would only misdirect them for so long. Eventually, with enough ships and enough time, DTC would find their way here. "We need to accelerate our plans," he decided. "If we wait for them to find us, we'll be trapped. But if we move first, establish contact with the Galactic Dental Association's Council of Ethics, and present our evidence that Red Earth is the Faltroxian homeworld, we could secure official protection," Captain Zyloff finished, nodding slowly. The indigenous species laws would force even DTC to back off. Mila looked concerned. But that means revealing our location. Yes, Zeb acknowledged. But on our terms, with proper documentation and witnesses. Better than being discovered unprepared. They set to work immediately. Zeb compiled all his dental scans and analysis, comparing Spark's tooth composition with the mineral deposits in the ancient cavern. Captain Zyloff prepared navigational records proving their journey and discovery. The native elders contributed their oral histories, recorded and translated for submission to the galactic authorities. As Zeb worked through the night, analyzing the final samples, he felt Mila's presence before he saw her. She stood in the doorway of his makeshift lab, Spark's protective shadow visible behind her. "You're not sleeping," he observed, setting down his instruments. "Neither are you," she replied with the directness of childhood. "Spark is worried. It can feel your anxiety." Zeb sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I'm trying to ensure we have enough evidence. The Council won't act without irrefutable proof." Mila approached, studying the complex charts on his screen. "The tooth you removed, you still have it?" "Of course," Zeb said, gesturing to a sealed container. "It's our most valuable piece of evidence. The crack reveals internal structures that match perfectly with the cave minerals." Mila nodded, then reached into her pocket, pulling out something small and glittering. "Spark wanted you to have this." In her palm lay a tiny scale, no larger than a thumbnail, shimmering with an internal light that seemed almost alive. "A dragon scale?" Zeb asked, carefully taking it. Under his analyzer, the scale revealed complexities he had never imagined. Microscopic structures that appeared to change and adapt even as he watched. "It's a gift," Mila explained. "In the native legends, a dragon gives a scale only to those it trusts with its life." Zeb felt a tightness in his throat. "I'm honored," he managed to say. "But I'm just a dentist who happened to be in the right place." Mila shook her head. "No, you chose to help when others wouldn't. Spark says you have the heart of a true healer." Before Zeb could respond, the camp's alarm system blared to life. Captain Zyloff's voice came through the communication system. "Multiple ships entering orbit. DTC insignia detected." Zeb and Mila rushed outside to see streaks of light cutting across the night sky. Far too many for a simple scouting mission. This was a full extraction force. "How did they find us so quickly?" Mila cried, instinctively moving closer to Spark. Zeb's mind raced, then settled on the horrible truth. The tooth extraction. The biological trace was stronger than we realized. They must have followed the quantum resonance. Captain Zyloff joined them, his tentacles writhing with agitation. 7 ships, heavily armed. They're preparing landing craft. "We need to transmit our evidence now," Zeb insisted. "Begin the emergency broadcast to the Galactic Council." "Already underway," Captain Zyloff confirmed. "But it will take time for the signal to reach them, and longer still for any response." Zeb looked at Mila and Spark, then at the frightened faces of the native villagers who had gathered at the commotion. These people had welcomed them, protected them. He couldn't let them face DTC's wrath. "We need to buy time," he decided. "Captain, continue the transmission. Mila, take Spark to the deepest part of the cavern system. The mineral composition should mask its biological signature." "What about you?" Mila asked, her young face set with determination beyond her years. Zeb held up the dragon scale, which seemed to pulse with inner light. "I have an idea. Something that might confuse their sensors long enough for help to arrive." As Mila led Spark toward the caverns, accompanied by several of the village elders, Zeb turned to his dental equipment. If his theory was correct, the scale contained the same resonant properties as Spark's entire body, but in concentrated form, with the right modifications to his broadcasting equipment. Working frantically, Zeb connected the scale to his dental scanner's emission array, programming it to broadcast Faltroxian biological signatures in a scattered pattern across a 50-kilometer radius. If successful, it would create dozens of false positive readings for DTC's scanners. The first landing craft touched down just as Zeb activated the device. The scale glowed intensely, then seemed to dissolve into the machinery, its energy spreading through the transmission network. Outside, DTC forces in full tactical gear spread out from their ships, bioscanners sweeping methodically across the landscape. Leading them was a familiar figure, Mr. Suit, his face cold with determination. Zeb stepped forward to meet them, Captain Zyloff at his side, behind them. The transmission to the Galactic Council continued, uploading their evidence packet bit by bit through the limited bandwidth available. "Dr. Prefect," Mr. Suit acknowledged with a thin smile, "you've led us on quite a chase." "I'm just providing dental care," Zeb replied calmly. "That's not illegal, even in DTC jurisdiction." Mr. Suit's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Harboring a protected corporate asset is... Our scanners show Faltroxian biosignatures all over this region." He looked momentarily confused as one of his officers whispered something in his ear, showing him a scanner displaying dozens of blinking lights. "Impossible," the officer was saying. "Either there are 50 dragons here, or something's interfering with our equipment." Zeb kept his expression neutral. "Red Earth has unusual mineral properties. Perhaps your technology isn't calibrated for local conditions." Mr. Suit's eyes narrowed. "Search everything," he ordered his team. "Tear apart every structure if necessary." As DTC forces spread out, Zeb exchanged a glance with Captain Zyloff. They needed just a little more time for the transmission to complete, and for the Galactic Council to respond. The DTC search grew increasingly frustrated as hours passed. Every time they thought they had located the dragon, they found nothing but empty caves or startled native wildlife. The scale's energy, distributed through Zeb's improvised network, was creating a perfect diversion. Just when it seemed they might succeed, disaster struck. One of the search teams stumbled upon the entrance to the deepest cavern, where mineral deposits had shifted, temporarily revealing the path Mila and Spark had taken. Alarms sounded across the DTC communication network. Mr. Suit ordered all forces to converge on the cavern system. Zeb raced ahead, hoping to reach Mila and Spark before the DTC forces. The ancient tunnels twisted and turned, leading deeper into the planet's crust. The air grew warmer, mineral-rich steam rising from fissures in the ground. When he finally found them, the sight stopped him in his tracks. The cavern had opened into an enormous underground chamber, and at its center was a pool of glowing magma. Surrounding it were massive, egg-shaped structures embedded in the chamber walls. Structures that looked disturbingly like eggs, Mila whispered, confirming his suspicion. "Faltroxian eggs. Hundreds of them." Spark stood at the edge of the magma pool, its scales fully luminescent now, reflecting the orange glow of the molten rock. The dragon was singing. There was no other word for it. A melodic, vibrating call that seemed to make the chamber itself resonate. And the eggs were responding, subtle movements visible beneath their translucent surfaces. "They've been here all along," Zeb realized in awe. "When the ancient Faltroxians left during the Great Cold, they didn't all leave. They laid their eggs deep in the planet's warmth, waiting for conditions to become favorable again." "Spark knew," Mila said. "It could sense them. That's why it was so important we came to Red Earth." The sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment. DTC forces were closing in, led by Mr. Suit himself. "We need to protect the chamber," Zeb said urgently. "If DTC finds these eggs..." He didn't need to finish. The implications were clear. An entire generation of Faltroxians, ready to hatch, would become nothing more than raw material for corporate profit. Spark seemed to understand the danger. The dragon moved protectively in front of the nearest cluster of eggs, its posture tense, ready to defend its unborn kin. "No," Mila said firmly, placing her hand on Spark's flank. "There are too many of them. You can't fight them all." Zeb's mind raced through options. They were cornered, outnumbered, with nowhere to run. The transmission to the Galactic Council had surely completed by now, but help, if it was coming at all, would arrive too late. Then his eyes fell on the magma pool, and a desperate idea formed. "Mila," he said quickly, "ask Spark if it can raise the temperature in this chamber, significantly, without harming the eggs." Mila closed her eyes, communing with the dragon. After a moment, she nodded. "Yes, but it would be dangerous for us." "Not if we create a safe zone," Zeb said, already moving to the chamber entrance. "Help me seal this passage with your heat lamp." Together, they used Zeb's dental tools to weaken the structural integrity of the tunnel, just as the first DTC scouts appeared around the bend. Spark, understanding the plan, sent a targeted burst of flame that collapsed the weakened section, sealing the humans inside with the dragon but blocking the main DTC force temporarily. Mr. Suit, who had been leading the scouts, found himself trapped on the wrong side of the collapse, inside the chamber with Zeb, Mila, and Spark. "What have you done?" he demanded, drawing a weapon. The few scouts with him did the same. "Given us a chance to talk," Zeb said calmly. "Lower your weapons. You're about to witness something that changes everything you think you know about Faltroxians." Mr. Suit's expression was skeptical, but his eyes widened as he finally noticed the eggs lining the chamber. "What is this place?" "The future of a species you thought you owned," Zeb explained. "These are Faltroxian eggs, preserved for millennia, waiting for the right conditions to hatch." Behind them, Spark had begun to raise the chamber's temperature, its body glowing with internal heat that radiated outward. The eggs responded more actively now, their surfaces undulating. "The heat is triggering the hatching process," Mila realized aloud. "Spark is waking them up." Mr. Suit's professional composure cracked as he watched the first egg split open, revealing a tiny Faltroxian, no larger than a house cat, its scales still soft and glistening with embryonic fluid. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Our research indicated the species was functionally extinct, except for isolated specimens." "Your research was incomplete," Zeb said firmly. "And now you have a choice. What happens in this chamber will determine whether you're remembered as the man who facilitated a genocide, or the man who helped save an ancient species." Before Mr. Suit could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. Beyond the collapsed tunnel, they could hear the DTC forces attempting to break through. "They'll be here soon," Mr. Suit said, his voice uncertain for the first time. "Not soon enough," Zeb replied, nodding toward the eggs, which were now hatching in rapid succession. Dozens of baby Faltroxians emerged, their collective heat and movement creating a symphony of new life. Spark moved among them, gently nudging the newborns, seemingly guiding them. The young dragon had found its purpose, not as the last of its kind, but as the guardian of its future. Mr. Suit watched in silence, his weapon lowered, the conflict visible on his face. Finally, he activated his communication device. "This is Executive Suit," he said, his voice firm. "Stand down all forces immediately. I repeat, stand down." "Sir," came the confused response. "We've almost broken through. The asset is confirmed inside." "These are not assets," Mr. Suit replied, watching as a newly hatched Faltroxian attempted its first awkward steps. "They are a protected indigenous species on their ancestral homeworld, and we are trespassing in violation of galactic heritage laws." Zeb could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You're standing down? Just like that?" Mr. Suit holstered his weapon with a sigh. "Dr. Prefect, contrary to what you might believe, Dragon Teeth Corporation does observe galactic law when unequivocally confronted with it. This He gestured to the hatching chamber. This changes the legal status of Faltroxians completely. As if on cue, Captain Xyloph's voice came through Zeb's communicator. Zeb, the Galactic Council received our transmission. They're dispatching an emergency protection team. Hold on. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Within hours, the first Galactic Council representatives arrived, quickly establishing a protective perimeter around the hatching chamber and the entire cavern system. The DTC forces, under Mr. Suit's unexpected orders, withdrew to orbit, where they remained as observers but made no further attempts to intervene. In the days that followed, xenobiologists, conservationists, and legal experts from across the galaxy converged on Red Earth. The discovery of a viable Faltroxian breeding population on what was now confirmed as their evolutionary homeworld triggered automatic protections under multiple galactic treaties. Dragon Teeth Corporation, facing potential sanctions if they contested the findings, publicly announced they were proud to support the preservation of this magnificent, rediscovered species, and promised to convert their hunting operations into conservation efforts. A transparent attempt to save face, but one that effectively ended the threat to Spark and its newly awakened kin. For Zeb, the transformation was more personal. Standing at the edge of the settlement, watching Mila guide newly hatched Faltroxians through their first interaction with sunlight, he felt a contentment he had never known in his years of solitary dental practice. So, Captain Xyloph said, joining him. What will you do now, Doctor? Return to your travels? Zeb touched the spot where he had carried Spark's scale, now dispersed but somehow still present in the warmth he felt there. I think not, he replied. Red Earth needs a dentist, especially with all these new dragons growing teeth. Besides, he added with a smile, watching Mila demonstrate to the hatchlings how to properly flap their wings. I've discovered there's more to healing than just fixing teeth. In the sky above, Spark soared in wide circles, its powerful wings casting a shadow across the red plains. The young dragon was no longer alone, no longer the last of its kind. Instead, it had become first of many, a pioneer returning to ancient home, beginning a new chapter in the long story of its species. As the sun set on Red Earth, painting the landscape in shades of crimson and gold, Zeb found himself whispering the words that had begun this unexpected journey. Come here, little animal. Your tooth is sick. I'm going to pull it out for you, little dragon. But now, those words carried a different meaning, not just about healing pain, but about removing obstacles to a future that once seemed impossible. A dentist had indeed changed the fate of an entire species, one tooth at a time. In the months that followed, Red Earth transformed. What had begun as a makeshift refugee camp evolved into a thriving research station and conservation center. The Galactic Council, recognizing the planet's significance, designated it a protected heritage world, with strict limitations on who could visit and what activities could take place. Zeb established a permanent dental clinic that served both the native population and the growing number of Faltroxians. His reputation spread throughout the sector, not just as an interstellar dentist, but as the man who had helped save an ancient species from extinction. Mila's role evolved as well. Her unique ability to communicate with Faltroxians made her invaluable to the research teams studying the dragon's behavior and biology. Though still a child, she was respected by scientists 3 times her age, who marveled at the depth of her connection with the creatures. Spark, now approaching adolescence, had grown considerably. Its wingspan stretched nearly 20 meters, and its scales had developed the deep, multi-layered iridescence of maturity. The titanium tooth Zeb had implanted remained perfectly functional, though the dragon now required regular checkups as its jaw continued to grow and change. One evening, as Zeb finished a particularly complex dental procedure on one of the younger hatchlings, He found Captain Zyloff waiting outside his clinic. "You've settled in well," the captain observed, his tentacles moving in what Zeb had come to recognize as a gesture of approval. "Never thought I'd prefer a permanent practice to wandering," Zeb admitted, cleaning his instruments. "But there's something satisfying about watching my patients grow up." Captain Zyloff nodded. "I've received new orders from the Galactic Council. The insatiable curiosity is being reassigned to a long-term research mission here on Red Earth. It seems I'll be your neighbor for the foreseeable future." Zeb smiled. "The crew will be glad to hear it, especially Mila. She's been pestering me about when she can visit the ship's library again." Their conversation was interrupted by a familiar roar from outside. Spark had returned from its daily patrol of the nesting grounds and was calling for Mila. "Still inseparable, those two," Captain Zyloff remarked. "Some bonds transcend species," Zeb replied, remembering how a frightened girl and an injured dragon had first brought him to this world. Later that night, after the 3 moons of Red Earth had risen, casting their combined glow across the settlement, Zeb sat with Mila and Spark on a ridge overlooking the plains. Below them, the lights of the research station twinkled like earthbound stars. "I received a message from the Galactic Dental Association today," Zeb said casually. "They've officially recognized dragon dentistry as a specialized field. They want me to write the definitive textbook." Mila grinned. "Dr. Zeb Prefect, author and expert. Who would have thought?" Spark, understanding the conversation if not the exact words, rumbled contentedly beside them. "There's more," Zeb continued. "They've agreed to fund a dental academy here on Red Earth. We'll train specialists from across the galaxy in xenodentistry, using the Faltroxians as our primary case study." Mila's eyes widened. "That's wonderful. More people will learn how to help dragons." Zeb nodded, but his expression turned serious. "There's something I wanted to ask you. Mila, the Academy will need someone who understands dragon communication, someone who can explain to the students what the dragons are feeling during procedures." "You want me to help teach?" Mila asked, straightening with pride. "More than that," Zeb said. "I want you to be my partner in this. You have a gift that no amount of training could provide. With your connection to the Faltroxians and my dental expertise, we could revolutionize how doctors throughout the galaxy approach interspecies medicine." Mila was quiet for a moment, absently stroking Spark's scales. "I'd like that," she finally said. "But I want to keep learning too. About everything. Not just dragons." "Of course," Zeb assured her. "Captain Zyloff has already offered to continue your education aboard the Insatiable Curiosity. Between the ship's resources and the new specialists arriving, you'll have the finest teachers in the galaxy." Spark nudged Mila gently, as if offering its own approval of the plan. As they sat together under the alien sky, Zeb reflected on how drastically his life had changed from that day in the dark Sunrise Bar. What had begun as a routine emergency call had become a journey of discovery, not just of an endangered species, but of his own capacity for connection and purpose. The dragon tooth he had extracted, the catalyst for their adventure, now sat in a place of honor in the Red Earth Museum of Natural History, alongside artifacts documenting the ancient relationship between Faltroxians and the planet's indigenous people. In the distance, a chorus of dragon calls echoed across the plains as the younger Faltroxians practiced their evening flights. Their numbers grew steadily as more eggs hatched from the ancient chamber deep beneath the surface. Each new birth represented another step away from extinction, another victory against the corporate greed that had nearly erased them from the galaxy. Dragon Teeth Corporation, true to Mr. Suit's unexpected change of heart, had indeed transformed its operations. The former hunting ships now transported researchers and conservationists to and from Red Earth, their hulls repainted with the new logo of the Faltroxian Preservation Initiative. It was a remarkable turnaround, driven less by altruism than by the recognition that the legal and public relations consequences of continuing their previous practices would be devastating. Mr. Suit himself had requested a permanent assignment to Red Earth, citing a professional interest in sustainable resource management. Zeb suspected the man had been more deeply affected by witnessing the dragon hatching than he cared to admit. "Do you think there are other planets like this?" Mila asked suddenly, interrupting Zeb's thoughts. "Other places where extinct species are just waiting to be rediscovered?" Zeb considered the question. "The galaxy is vast, and we've explored only a fraction of it. I wouldn't be surprised if there are countless worlds harboring secrets like Red Earth's." Spark lifted its head at this, eyes fixed on the stars above, as though contemplating distant worlds and possibilities. "Maybe that's what we should do next," Mila suggested, her young voice filled with excitement. "After the Academy is established, we could explore, looking for other forgotten species." Zeb laughed. "From dentist to conservationist to explorer, that's quite a career path." "Why not?" Mila challenged. "You already changed once. Why stop now?" Why indeed, Zeb thought. The universe had proven itself far more wondrous and surprising than he had ever imagined during his solitary years of practice. Who knew what other marvels awaited discovery? As if sensing his thoughts, Spark extended one wing, creating a canopy of living scales above them, sheltering them in a gesture that seemed both protective and inclusive. A dragon's way of saying they were family now, bound by something deeper than circumstance. Under that living tent, with Red Earth's red soil beneath them and countless stars above, Zeb felt a profound sense of rightness. He had found his place in the vast cosmos, not drifting alone between patients, but rooted in purpose, surrounded by beings who had become far more than mere acquaintances. "You know," he said softly, "I think I'd like that. Exploring the galaxy, finding lost wonders, helping forgotten creatures. With a good dental kit, of course." Mila giggled. "Of course. We can't forget the teeth." Spark rumbled agreement, its new titanium tooth gleaming in the moonlight. Together, they watched as a shooting star streaked across the alien sky, a silent promise of adventures yet to come, of worlds waiting to be discovered, and of teeth, perhaps, waiting to be healed. For Zeb Prefect, interstellar dentist, it was just the beginning.